did it because it just went on my phone. That knock, you got connected because it, when I usually watch it on my phone, I get the notification, notification? And that knock is my notification, oh shit.
I know what you mean.
Yep, see, here we are.
Sweet.
Piano. Turn off your piano. There we go. Got the piano off. Control. Yeah, that works. Okay.
How's it going?
Good job.
Yeah, that's stressful.
Yeah,
I guess I know how to do it in the future.
but that's something, good job. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. I would not have done it without it.
That's what Lauren gave me when I did it a number of years ago, but he set it up and I did it by myself. And
Been in Hartland for a long while. He was, weirdly enough, so back in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, the planning commission did engineering drawings on it.
Because when I worked here, it was like in the works then, and then it was like, it's been a forever thing.
John did the original
I
design.
was just sitting here praying that it would work on there, please.
Yeah, well, I screwed up, I guess.
The town didn't do anything.
Water license law.
It doesn't matter.
I screwed up the.
You did a lot better than I probably would have. But I know that I would have, you know.
The Hanover Dresden shoot a couple weeks ago, like beginning of March and February, and it switched over from the Hanover shoot to the Dresden shoot, and one of the other producers was supposed to be with me, and they couldn't make it, so I had to like do the entire thing by myself. Chico set it up, and the people running it were like, you know, and when I switched over, I guess I didn't click something, and it like didn't go live for the second half. And Samantha called me and she was like, this is a huge issue. I was like, I'm so sorry.
I was thinking that she was,
Yeah, I'm sure she was.
she's good. She still is. I mean, if she can put up with me.
Yeah, Samantha's cool. I like Samantha. She's very like strict, but she knows what she wants. You know? She's strict in like a professional way.
Yeah.
70,000, give or take, is being funded through a bike ped program, which is
The first night, I was here my very first night that I did a shoot. This is when the
sidewalk stuff
and
for
Thomas, I thought, when he said he was gonna train me, I thought he said, you know, he would be with me the most of the night. He set it up and everything, and he says, you do this, you do this, you do this. And then he says, I'll see you later. I'm like,
I can't do that. Like,
the road surface part.
all right, so
and that was just the camera and the, you know, rendering the,
Basically,
I'm gonna look this up. I have to do it from over here, which is the only thing that I don't like.
400 and
So,
something thousand dollars being paid for by,
more.
you know,
How do I?
as I said in that, he sat through all these weird things.
So, I guess what,
What's it on? What's the point? I
yeah.
have no idea what this
I
is.
don't know.
I have no idea what this is. I have no idea. So there was an RFP that went out, I don't have it, I probably should have made it part of that. So there was an RFP that went to the newspaper, and it's on our website, and it's not out there, right? That basically says that this project is being funded with federal money.
Who can share? Only hosts.
So, but
And we've already taken a loan.
we already,
It's already done this.
it's in our bank
The
account.
money is already included in our tax rate for
Next year, for next year.
Okay, I didn't know how,
Keep this place, this stir things up.
I mean, it's good to ask questions, I don't question asker,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if there was.
No, I don't know what his point is. He was like, oh, what is it? One and the other, and you don't see it on that response, and I went with that one. So I responded to him a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear that he's already.
And one of my responses was like, geez, John, is it possible that, I'm like, is it possible that there's grant money? That's usually how it works.
Yeah, we never, I mean, we weren't, so,
hi, Mary. Fine, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good to see your face, like in person.
Right?
I'm still one of the mass holdouts.
Well, I think it's a good idea, I just don't feel like it. But the cases are high now, so.
Where's Mr. Jennings tonight?
Well, he's here.
Yeah, my mother said when I left, she said, say hi to Claude.
Oh, yeah.
Emily Abbott.
Oh.
My mother.
Long time no see.
I know. She's 95 this year. Well, she'll be 96 in November. But
And still going.
yeah, she can't walk very well right now, but she's her mind is active.
Yeah.
Of course, she misses my dad. She misses my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Right.
So who's suckling the place?
Dennis.
Dennis?
Yeah, oh yeah, he's made like he told me 123 gallons, I think.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was like a revolving door over there. It was non-stop people coming in and out.
Yeah. So that's why he took off personal time.
Oh, today, did he?
No, I don't know about today, but I was doing payroll in West.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I bought the house, he said, "So what's your intentions with the sugar house?" I said, "Well, I'd like to sugar with the kids, but I don't have a clue how to do it." "Oh, you mind if I do it?"
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Perfectly fine.
So do you have to buy a new evaporator,
Uh,
or was the one there?
I don't know what any of the equipment is, Clyde. I
The
have
big
the
thing
building.
at the top,
I have
that's
the
it.
building that I pay taxes on. Past that, I can.
Yeah,
There was the boiling pan thing.
yeah, okay.
So that was there.
That's the evaporator.
Yeah, that was there. He's bought an RO. He's bought, what else did he buy? A thing that goes on top of it.
Oh, probably,
Condenser.
yeah,
Something.
probably a preheater.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
This is her without her glasses, and I gave her purple hair. That
Well,
hair,
well, you
the
know, at
hair
her
isn't
age,
real.
at her age, it's supposed to be blue hair. That was years ago,
Beautiful
right?
hair. She's still got little color here.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil's here.
Yeah, good.
He's out of town, but here.
Hello, everyone.
Howdy.
All night.
No, no, no worries.
So, spend some more money.
Oh, see, these are the invoices that are in the packet?
Yeah.
So what are you doing, in this one?
I'm assistant town clerk treasurer.
You just couldn't get enough of it.
No, well, last August, Kathy was supposed to have a carpal tunnel surgery. And so I started in July to learn to be a treasurer, basically, and her blood sugars were too high, so we postponed it to December. She got shingles, and so February 17th, they finally did the surgery.
Yeah.
And now we hear a lot about how
I had both,
she also had to have some surgery on her thumb.
tendonitis or something.
Well, she had a joint problem.
Okay.
And she had a trigger finger,
Okay.
so
Where did she go?
she did it at Dr. Riley.
It's where I had mine done.
Yeah, and now she's doing her therapy now at Windsor,
Yeah.
Katie,
I think it'd be easier for
With who?
Katie Sawyer.
Yeah, that's who did all
And
the,
Bruce had
you.
carpal
I'm not the chair.
and he also had,
Mandy,
how are you?
it's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Time to go to our files.
Oh, you're here?
Typically 6
Hopefully it's not a bad thing.
wherever you want.
Bruce had carpal tunnel, busted stuff on his bone, but he's got rheumatoid arthritis. So she said, well, the next day, she's giving him a couple of shots. Dr. Riley.
She's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna go to, have it done,
Answer?
yeah. I mean, she's at Alice Head. So I was going to go to Dartmouth, because they do, she does the open, Dr. Riley does, and I was kind of concerned about the recovery for her.
Yeah.
And then after speaking to people, it was hands down across, everybody said, Dr. Riley is who you want, she's really, well, I
She
said,
must be the top one now.
yeah, like some people have had that, what they call the closed procedure done at Dartmouth, and then she's had to go in and correct it.
who takes.
I just made an appointment at the Mass General.
Yeah.
So that's what
Oh, really?
Who's
I
president?
don't know if she is able to do it, but truly.
This is just just to feel things out, figure out what
Yeah, she's amazing. She's like had
Dave, I
a
asked
really
him to send
renowned
me
hand
a
surgeon.
It's a little
And
tight.
it's
Oh, really?
local.
Come over.
Yeah, maybe I should get 2 hands.
It's a little tight. I gotta spread out myself here.
He wants his bubble.
God.
I printed my,
I was hoping you'd make Cheyenne welcome.
I made her very welcome.
Well,
You're crimping her.
I don't think so.
What works for you, work. May not work the way it works here.
It looks like your hair comes
I'm a little bit
All
more.
right, Cheyenne.
It's like ruined his life.
Kind of crowded my universe here.
It's just their changes afoot.
You're welcome.
I see that.
All right, is everybody set?
Almost.
All right. It's just their changes afoot.
You're welcome.
I see that.
All right, is everybody set? All right. It's just their changes afoot.
You're welcome.
I see that. Only now, but.
All right, is everybody set? It's just their changes afoot.
You're welcome.
I see that. Only now, but.
Is everybody set? All right, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. That's 5:31. I'm chairing the meeting tonight because our student chair is out of town. He's joining us via Zoom. Bill, Bobby. So first item on the agenda is the minutes and then the orders, the warrants, the bills. So I'll entertain a motion. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The minutes from last meeting. 5:31. I'm chairing the meeting tonight because our student chair is second.
I'll second it.
Second, Bill, is there any discussion? So first item on the agenda is the minutes and the orders.
Mary, I sent you a short note asking that possibly you include my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership, to mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration opportunities, and third, just a general thank you to the select board to the membership of those. Mary, I sent you a short note asking that possibly include my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership, to mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration opportunities. And third, just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. To mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration opportunities. And third, just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration opportunities. And third, just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear my remarks to appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear can you hear me now? To appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear can you hear me now? To appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear can you hear me now? To appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mention that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about the meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you from the select board to the membership. Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear can you hear me now? To appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. mentioned that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you to the select board too.
We're gonna try to restart the meeting.
Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not asking if you were talking to me. I didn't hear anything. Can you hear me now? To appeal to the cemetery committee for membership. Mentioned that the chairs of the committees and commissions are talking about meeting for collaboration. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Just a general thank you to the select board too.
We're gonna try to restart the meeting.
Of those, Mary, I sent you a short note. I'm not.
Is that a required motion? Do you know?
I think you should make a motion to table it
Okay.
to a further meeting.
Okay, I'll make that motion then to table item 4, select board meeting rules and procedures to a future meeting of the select board.
And I'll second that motion, Mary.
Thanks, Bill. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor. Thank you. Public comments. So we have a few minutes for public comments on any issue that's not on the agenda. Yes.
I noticed that the intersection has gone out to bid,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering whether the select board has a contingency plan in place, and if there is, what is it for an overrun? In all likelihood, the bid may come in and probably will come in above the amounts that have been allocated.
Mm-hmm.
And does the board have a contingency plan for any additional monies that would be required as part of that?
Okay. Jasmine. Okay, I'm gonna, I will say yes, we do have a contingency plan, and I will allow Dave, please, to speak to your question.
Yep, so John, I think you were aware of a meeting that I mentioned to the board that there is surplus highway monies, not to be confused with surplus general fund monies, available for if there are overruns on this project. If the overruns get to be too excessive, you know, that the board could always consider utilizing ARPA monies, if that were to, you know, have to be dealt with, but at the moment, that's the plan.
Is there any legal requirement for a certain amount of money that is overrun that has to be brought back to the public, or do you just have carte blanche discretion to spend whatever you want to spend?
Well, we can only spend what we've got available to spend, so there's no borrowing. What went to the voters was the authority to borrow. You know, at the moment, if this goes over that, the surplus monies would be available without voter approval. And technically, the ARPA monies could be available without voter approval as well.
How much is in the surplus for the highway?
A little over 400,000.
So you have the discretion of spending $400,000 more on the intersection without going back to the voters?
Correct.
Okay.
Is it likely that we'll do that? No,
I'm not so sure.
because we're such
It might not
spendthrifts.
be a significant amount of the 400,000.
We're all taxpayers. All right, is there any other,
But can I just ask one question?
yeah,
If you needed to take money out of that fund, would you have to have a public, would it have to be done in a public meeting? Would we have to approve it?
No.
No, you can do it without, or.
I mean, you have to approve, you know, ultimately you have to approve the warrant to the, you know, to the contractor. But, you know, we're pretty far gone at this point. You know, you're making an interest payment on a loan that you've got in your bank.
Right, so you wanna get it rolling as quick
You're
as
gonna
you
be
can.
paying $350,000 interest on. You got $370,000 in grant money kicking around, he got $80,000 in another grant.
So I guess my
Yeah,
question
you
was,
dispose of.
any distribution from a fund, we would have to approve here, wouldn't we?
So this is not, so you would approve the warrant, but this is, it kind of comes back to the difference between general fund and highway funds. You know, in the general fund, we did with voter approval, set up a reserve fund. Don't need to do that with highway fund. So it's essentially equity or it's fund balance, positive fund balance.
It's already,
That is just,
I think you're saying it's already approved, you already have approval to
It's-
spend the money, it's just not spent.
it's hanging there, and some of this, a portion of this was because we were lucky enough in other instances to get grant money, that offset some of our expenses that we were expecting to do, and some of that was because District 4 of V-Trans was, pulled through for us that we didn't expect, so, this is there, but again, I would reiterate that, this has been voted on twice. There's not a whole lot to back out of this project. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna take away the utilities that was voted on? It's a four-way intersection. You can't take away with one section of it. So, we're into this, but again, 2/3 of the voters asked for this.
Right. And we don't know if there'll be an overrun yet or not, so.
Correct.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're done with public comments, we're on to new business. First item is town plan update, and Jay Bawarian and Charles Jeffries from the Planning Commission are here to do that, I assume?
Sure.
Okay.
So, the town plan is up for readoption. The town plan goes through a cycle required by the state every, I can't remember, it's 7 or 8 years that we have to readopt the town plan. The town plan was last readopted in 2017. And we had identified enough changes that we wanted to make that we thought were important back in 2020, that we started making changes at that time to accommodate those. And at the same time, the state has new requirements for town plans, and so we've had to add 2 new chapters. So basically, we're going to be adding the new chapters for the forest blocks and the energy chapter. And we also have some changes for the I-91 interchange, as well as in the economics chapter, because we had some ambiguities between things that were said in the economics chapter versus things that were in the rural residential and rural districts. And so that's what the changes are about. There might be some other changes, clarification for, going and finding where the wrong word was used, like ensure versus insure throughout the document. But it's not a revamping of the entire document. It's a clarification of those policy issues in the I-91 interchange and the economics chapter and the energy chapter and the forest blocks. Jay will talk about the forest blocks and the energy chapter. And I'll start off by talking about the I-91 interchange.
Can I get you to come on just a little bit closer?
Sure.
Sorry about that. Thanks. Just gets you closer to the microphone.
Sure. The I-91 interchange, the old version, the 2017 version, mentioned an area behind Barney's that we were describing as the bowl.
Yeah.
The idea was that it was out of sight and it was a good option for some commercial development in the interchange area that would not be visible from 91 or Route 5. There were some problems with language in there, and so that language was clarified to make sure that we properly bounded the area and included the physical area that was included in the description. And so that was the majority of that change. Do we have Dan?
Yes, Dan Germain is on.
So do you have any questions about the I-91 interchange?
Is there anything being developed in that bowl right now?
I'm not aware of any permits that have been applied for in that area, no. And it would have been difficult to have gotten a permit to do any commercial work in there prior to this because of these ambiguities. That's part of why we're doing this, is that looking at the language was muddled, and it would have made, it would have been too ambiguous.
So how about, is that a site for possible development of housing?
We were looking at it as the possibility of commercial development. It is possible for housing as well.
So you're not changing that?
We're not changing that, no.
Okay.
I might add to that. There's a lot of work that's going on there. The principals of the project are away for the winter, so you're gonna see more work coming pretty quick. And but what they're doing, seems.
But there haven't been any permits that we've seen applied for them.
I mean, we need housing, I hope it's housing.
It depends, do you call housing for temporary nurses in the Upper Valley? That seems to be a thought that may happen there. By short-term, 3-month rentals, people that come to the area, but as far as permanent residents, I'm not thinking that's, it may be happening.
So are there any questions about the I-91 interchange?
Yeah, I just had a question about, it says in there, you call it the Varney property.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't it be more appropriately described as the 911 number to the property, because Varneys don't own it anymore.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, because down the road,
And that's something
if
that we
it's
stumble across in
the
the
542nd Street or something.
Yep, that's a good point.
Clyde, there is a map of the I-91 district in your document there, and so it's not just identified as a property. It shows that that's a...
In the written word, it is.
I beg your pardon?
In the written word,
No, I'm talking about there is a map or visual.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It changes the name warning.
So did you already have your second, do you have to have a second?
No, we don't need
You
that.
only have one, we have
had
two.
one, and
Yeah.
the select board will have two.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Clyde, just let me specify, so if you want to, if the select board wants to change that from the name of the property to the 911 property, then it's kind of in your hands to do that at this point. So after the public hearing, at the next meeting on the 18th, there should be discussion on changes that the select board would like to make to the plan. And if that's, if you want it to be the 911, then at this point, most likely Sean will pass on that information to Two Rivers, who is kind of like the gatekeeper of the document. When the planning commission had it, is still kind of the gatekeeper to the document now. We'll pass on any changes to them, so, it's something that's kind of
So
fixable.
when are you turning it over to us?
We have turned it over to you. We had a
It's
formal
ours.
vote on the planning commission, and we given it to you.
If I could make one correction to that, maybe now's the time to do it. We're in section 1, which includes the I-91 district, but there is one, we just learned on Friday, that there's one section that we voted on, approved, that was not reflected in changes from Two Rivers. It's very short, it's very brief. It has to do with Class 4 roads. We read it by our meeting, Dave's aware of it, so you'll notice on that sheet that I'm handing out, that there's one paragraph that's struck out to be replaced by the one below it.
And I'm hoping that we can include this in any changes that the select board chooses to make.
Mary, I could not hear what section that was referred to by Jay. Can someone repeat that, please?
Section 1,
Well, I
Page
think,
57,
I think
page
this is the,
57.
I think this is the transportation section,
yes.
and it's, page 57, and it's related to class 4 roads.
But Mary, back to your question, what we were supplying you with. It's what is on the town website now with this one exception.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wanting to know when we are getting it, and this is it.
Yep, you bet.
Okay. So I don't see where this goes, I don't,
Yeah, that wasn't either.
Inside the transportation section,
Page 57.
yeah, we're
Is it
at
the
page
right page number,
57,
Jay?
but I don't,
Yeah, it may not line up.
I'm looking
You're
for
on
that.
page 55?
she is, I'm on page 50, I'm looking at two page 57s, I don't see,
So depending on, if you took yours apart and it's not stapled,
yeah,
so after page 111 on that particular document, for
Oh.
some reason it starts over at 1 again. So
so I have to go to 111?
no, so,
So you're going to section 5, transportation.
so section 5 is the first 57.
It's page 71 on the document edits.
Yeah,
That's where
starting,
it starts.
starting on chapter,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
something different, but just as a side note, I think it's starting on chapter 8, which is page 112 or something. It goes to,
Let's see.
for some reason, it reverts back to page 1. It's not in the document that was, you know, the clean one, but in the strikeouts and et
It's
cetera.
just kind of like,
Yeah, it
There's
goes,
a lot of extra pages because of the strikeouts.
it restarts the numbering, I see.
Okay.
what's going
yeah,
on.
and that, exactly.
You should be aware that the copy that we have
Is
is
that all
exactly,
together, is that all in pieces?
Right here, right here. Look at-
Okay, you want this one, that's staple?
No, no,
Okay.
is exactly the Two Rivers
Yeah.
clean version that we got back on later in March.
So just for this page, the new page lines up with, the paragraph
yes,
lines up with page 73
thank you,
on the documents that have the edits in it.
thank you very much.
You don't know anything about
Okay,
page 73, hopefully we don't.
It's the secret page.
Okay.
Do you find it?
I did, yeah.
It's kind of like halfway.
Yep. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you. I have no more questions about that.
Okay, Dan, are you there? I'd ask Dan to make, talk about the changes for the rural district. Is Dan there?
Dan, you just need to unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
How's that?
Good.
Yeah, the biggest thing we did was just we corrected some language to more clearly define what the we had some conflicts that were because we weren't consistent throughout the document, and that got seized on by in Act 250 proceedings. So we didn't really change so much about the defining the district, but we made it clear in other portions that just what the rural district was. The other change was was that we defined business. I'm just trying to come up with a section here. I'm on a computer screen. I have to scroll. So, but basically, we wanted to define to try to get a handle on this question of people renting out short-term rentals, Airbnbs, things like that. And we wanted to specifically put in there that that was allowed, but that there was a square footage limitation that people can't use the Airbnb section to put in, like hotels and things like that, or turn their house into what is essentially a hotel with, with people coming and going all the time. Those are the two major ones. Unless anybody has some questions, they could,
Dan, just a quick question. What page were you referring to on the document with edits?
that's what I'm trying to come to. It's section, well, there was section 1 and section 9.
Thank you.
So Dan, this is Mary, do you, how do you define a hotel? Because it would seem like that Airbnb thing.
Yeah,
could-
we didn't define the hotel as such, but we did, well, we use the term hotels as a legitimate business use in the town districts. But we did define home occupations as renting out rooms in your property. And so it wasn't that we said hotels aren't allowed, but we just we defined home occupation to be only with those things that we described and nothing else. So if you're trying to, just so people couldn't argue that a hotel was the same as an Airbnb. So we stayed away from terms like Airbnb and hotels.
Thank you.
If there aren't any other questions about that section, I'll have Jay talk about the forest blocks and the energy chapter.
Okay, you ready, Dave? The chapter 6 is the energy chapter. It's 100% rewritten from what was there previously. And that was dictated by state standards. And the job initially went to the Energy Committee. The way this section is divided is that the state has mandated certain percentages renewable energy usage between now and 2050. So we have 3 time periods, and they give us state standards, and then they break it down into town standards, what one should do. It's a goal, it's not a directive, it's what one aims to do. So in the energy section, we have different types of energy uses, fuel, heating, quite a number of things that you can see on all the charts, such that certain standards should be met by different time frames. And that's sort of the long and the short of the energy section. There's nothing that's mandated, but it's a good policy if the town of Hartland is trying to join forces with other towns in the state to accomplish the state's goal. I'm happy to go through it page by page, but maybe you could just look at some of the different metrics that are used in there about different type of energy usages over the recent past and what's hoped for in the future.
I feel like we've seen some of this from the Energy Committee, from Sarah Bruce.
Yeah.
And so, did they have a big hand in?
Yes, they had maybe a 70-page document that they gave to us. And we went through it and we reduced it considerably, keeping the points about Hartland intact and adding a few of our own. So it's theirs to start with. They did a great job. They spent a long time on it. And we tweaked it to what we thought was, I don't want to say more achievable goals, but things that could happen. That were pretty much in line with what they suggested, but not completely.
Well, the town plan has a different, angle than the Energy Commission.
Right.
And the water, so,
There's a lot of useful information in there, and that people that are interested in buying renewable energy on their own through group metering or other things. They can see places to go, who to talk to. So it's a good document.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's up to the select board to distribute this?
Well,
Well, how does it get out to the public?
No, it's, if,
Like, once this is approved, what if the public, we need to let people know, this is a scintillating document?
well, yeah, Mary, exactly. And that's why it's on the web now. If anybody wants to see what's in the document.
So that's the only place, there won't be hard copies anywhere?
Well, actually, I believe the Energy Committee wants to have a presence online for a town website, that people can go now, read the document, make comments back. Maybe those comments go back to the Energy Committee. But as far as the Planning Commission is concerned, we looked through it, and we think it's adequate and complete.
Yeah, so my question is simply, if I wanted, let's say I'm not on a computer, I'm not,
Yep.
okay, and I wanted to read this,
Yep.
could I get a hard copy anywhere?
Right now, it's online. You can go to the town website.
I'm not online, I'm somebody who's not
You can
online.
come to the town offices and get any version of this that you would like, whether it be the striked out version or just the as presented to the select board. You can get any version that you like. Brian would be the person to go to on this.
Okay.
And then once, and again, as Jay pointed out, there will be a public hearing, two of them actually. And then, even then, if people are still craving the town plan, anytime they can come in and ask for a copy of the town plan.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary, for reminding me, not everything needs to be only online.
You know, electricity goes out, not everybody has generators, some people want a paper copy, they can take to bed and read, fall asleep. Not that the plan would make them fall asleep, I'm not saying that, however, that did work for me.
We got it. I only mentioned about you reading it. If you have any questions tonight about any particular aspect of it, we'd be happy to talk about it.
So are you gonna be at the public hearing?
Probably, likely.
Something, okay, good. Anything else you want to say? Anybody else have questions? Phil? Hello, Phil? Phil, do you have questions?
I'm going to stay away from the energy one. We're going to, there's a new section on forest blocks, and I was wondering if someone could just highlight those items.
Talk about that?
Right this minute.
Jay's going to address that right now.
We started the town plan review process in late 2019. And the first thing, the way that we found out what we needed to do is that the two rivers told us unequivocally we couldn't just make the little changes that we had irked us over the last few years. We had to go back and we had to fill in every blank that the state now wanted. And one of those blanks was called forest blocks. The state of Vermont, legislative bodies have really decided that there's too much open land development and that it's harming the quality of life. And so they went in and they did a study of every town in the state to a particular standard. That was looking for wildlife corridors, rare and endangered species, wetlands, acidic soils. It was a hell of a job. And so it came down that they mapped every town in the state of Vermont.
Who did this?
Agency of Natural Resources. And so versions weren't necessarily available, but if you went online and you downloaded certain things, you could exactly put the map together. And that's something that we did. So this is how the forest blocks came to be defined in the town of Hartland. So I'm going to hold it up, and there's just, I guess it's,
Help if it was right side up.
you can all kind of catch where the town of Hartland is on this map. And I guess in a way, it's almost like a Rorschach test. There's certain things that leap out at you. And notice the white areas and notice the green areas. The green areas have been mapped as Hartland's forest blocks and wildlife corridors. If you look at all the towns in Windsor County, Hartland has probably the least forest blocks of any town in Windsor County.
Really?
And that's because, hate to say it, but there's certain features we don't have in town that sort of limit where people can build and what can be developed. So all this is not in forest block, a little island up top there. So according to the state standards, this is what we've designated as what a forest block is. Now, the reason it had to be done on a map this scale is because we wanted to see where the property bounds were. So anybody could come to this map and they could look at the parcel layout to say, am I in, am I out? There's no requirement that they need to do anything unless they're in the Act 250 process. If they're in the Act 250 process, there's things a developer has to abide by. And that's written into a little bit of the language, but most of the language is where are we? What are we talking about? The other thing about forest blocks is really half the name. It's wildlife corridors. You can have wildlife that's here, but if they haven't got a way to get to a neighboring town, you can see the implication on a statewide basis of where you have a flow and life continues as it has in the past. So the corridors are very important, and we have very few corridors in Hartland that would then lead to places like Chittenden County or Wyndham County. So that's an important consideration of what a forest block is all about.
So how updated is this forest block then?
2019, 2020. It's pretty up to date.
Well, as you know, on our road, 85 acres were clear cut.
But Mary, you know what? That was a perfectly legal operation.
I know it was legal, but if it's indicated on there as part of the forest block, that's no longer the case.
No, that's not true because it's not an Act 250 project. What it is large blocks like you're talking about, like on the road, really is under the control of state forestry. First thing we did, I thought exactly what you did. I said, wait a minute, what's he doing? He's clear cutting out here. This isn't right. So, membership in the Planning Commission gets you a little knock on a few doors, and I got right through to the state forester in charge of that project. And she explained to me it's a conversion back to agricultural use. So if it had gone to Act 250, it was perfectly legitimate.
We also have language in there that you first go to this map to see whether you're in it, but then there's also language in there that you actually identify the edges of the forest on the ground with a forester and meeting whatever acceptable criteria of what a forest would be. So actually this is a general representation of where it is, but to be specific, if somebody's coming in with an Act 250 application to determine whether they're in a forest block or not, you would actually do that delineation on the ground. So in this case where they did an 80 acre or 40 acre, 85 acre clear cut, I would presume that if they were coming in with an Act 250 permit, when you went on the ground to identify the forestry edge and the relationship of that to the forest block, that would be then considered in the application and not necessarily part of the forest because it's been changed.
Yeah, so my question specifically is, was that 85 acres, before it was cut, was that part on the map of a forest block?
I guess where is it?
Better set it on the table for a minute.
It's in here too. Page 26, the marked up copy.
They marked it?
The marked up copy, yeah.
It's like the second 26, if you go from the back, it's almost towards the end.
Mary,
Yeah.
it's pretty much, here's,
It's the second 26, so if you go in from the back, it's the,
But I picked this one up to the
oh, you,
office,
okay. Yeah.
so I think this
Who
one's
kno- I don't know,
correct.
I don't know what number yours
The
is.
ones that Brian had
So it
were
wasn't in the
perfect.
forest,
Well,
Or the
was it in the forest
So,
plan?
yeah, I scanned it in. If you want, what do you got there, the ones with the
and
lines?
it wasn't in the forest
Yeah.
lot, wasn't because
I'm
there
okay
there
with
were
that.
trees.
We have yet,
It didn't
Didn't
have any
change this problem.
connectivity to other places that
January
then
5th,
makes
the
it
March
a private
Oh,
park.
that's
Okay.
what,
and then part of that is thinking about
This one
what
has
else
only
is
January,
in
that
these
one
other
has to
towns
March 11th.
around us.
January
That
5th.
how can we
Only
connect
those
our
shows. This one
forests
has the ones per
with a
piece
piece
that
of
has-
forest in
Most of
Windsor
I mean,
as
the
well as
changes are
Woodstock,
there.
so that
Not so much.
animals can travel through Hartland somewhere
And it
else.
doesn't, it just, and the existing forest block areas don't get fragmented where there's.
right. Okay, so a forest block has to do with animals.
And trees and waterways and.
But you could have trees, like there was
Yes.
here,
Yeah,
but that doesn't make it a forest block.
right.
Yes.
right. And so what you see, the green is the, that's
Yeah,
the fun.
yeah.
But there's a 2022 implication to all this that's just came out, and that's Senate Bill 234. Senate Bill 234 is changing the Act 250, or is proposing to change the Act 250 rules such that now, if you were to build anywhere in town that requires a road greater than 800 feet, you're in Act 250. So, but I gotta tell you, that's the way it used to be.
Right.
20 years ago, that was in the plan, and then it came out when people thought that there wasn't enough development in the state. So that's reverted. So that's gonna play back into things. And
But
so,
does that cover a driveway, Jay?
it said access.
So if you're building,
Access.
so if you've got 100 acres and you're building a house and you're gonna build a driveway over 800 feet, you'd need an Act 250 permit.
That's right. So that's why this is a very timely part of the plan. The state was really thinking ahead, 3 years ago, they create the maps that give us the tools to say, okay, where is it? And this is how it'll apply to things in the
So
town.
Jay, one quick question. I understand if Act 250 applies, you have some
Yep.
requirements. But if you own 100 acres of forest block, and you just clear the whole thing and put up a house, and it's, only a 100-foot driveway, there's nothing that prevents you.
No, you have to go to the forestry department.
That's
because-
only if you're in current use though.
No, I don't think so.
So
I don't know,
even
you know
if
what?
you're not-
How much you can clear without
Timber
a,
cuts.
without a forester.
Yeah.
I don't know what that limit is,
Yeah.
but it's,
Are you sure? I thought that only applied if you're in current use.
Current use is a whole different deal, Mary, I agree with you, but I'm pretty sure that state forester is gonna be on your property, seeing the extent of your cut. And that's exactly what they did on our road. The forester came in and they marked, I was really afraid that Weed Brook up there, we used to fish on down all the way through, that the brook was gone because they were gonna clear cut. Well, they didn't clear cut because the forester laid out a track that kept a safety zone around Weed Brook. So,
But that's in current use, that property.
I don't think that makes any difference, Mary.
they
There's-
prosecuted
it says
somebody
timber
for
cuts larger
for
than-
not getting the forestry permits about 3 years ago. It's not connected with current use, it's that there's a size limitation. And I'm sorry, I don't have the number of acres, but there is a size limitation.
There,
that you
there's
can-
a part in here, and I haven't read it all through, but it says timber cuts larger than 40 acres and projects with whole tree chipping require additional permits.
Matter of fact, thank you, I remember the forestry talking about the chip aspect of it.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know we had that protection.
Yeah.
Actually.
So we're not quite 100% Wild West.
Right. I felt like that when the log trucks going by my house twice a day for a year, it just.
And when they weren't going your way, they were coming my way.
Right.
Anyways, that's pretty much the story on forest blocks. I did ask the listers if they could take our map and use it as a layer on their parcel map, so that anybody in town that had a computer and not a huge map, you know, could go and see exactly on their property where the forest block was. And so they said, hey, this, you know, they were in the process of trying to find out what to do. It'd be great if it was on there as a layer.
That's interesting, okay, thanks. Dude, you getting itchy? Okay,
Communicating.
okay.
So that does it, unless you have any other questions on energy or forest blocks, that's all, it's all.
Phil? No, okay. Nobody else? I think we're good. Appreciate you guys coming in and answering our questions. And actually, it's a really good document, it's interesting. I make fun of it, but just because it's so big. But it's good, it's a lot of work and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in the plan? So those are the highlights, I think, is there anything else?
No.
I think we're gonna move on to the next item, which you might want to stay around for. We're gonna approve liquor licenses.
We'll know where to go, Jay.
Liquor licenses for David Hallward.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so second item of new business, liquor license renewal. And we have to take action for BG's Market, Mike's Store, Skunk Hollow Tavern. So I do have a question. Why is there no tobacco license for Mike's Store?
Because Bill put in his tobacco license and he didn't need to. He put it in the package because the state regulates the tobacco now.
I thought we did this last year, didn't we?
You asked that question last year,
That's what I thought.
but he didn't have it in there. Mike's didn't have it. But we got Mike, so we went through this last year.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Just,
Okay.
one quick question, Dave. It looked like on BG's application, he omitted one of the questions.
Yeah, Jim, that's my same piece, is that they never checked some of the boxes there.
Director of staff was convicted of criminal.
So, what I would recommend is if there's anything that is not quite of order, that Brian just simply put it in order. He has to approve it at the end of the day, but, you know, I would move forward with the select board as to whether the select board is gonna approve this or not.
I mean, that's fine, it just seems a little bit out of order to approve something that's gonna be filled in later.
Especially when it's the criminal question.
So if we approve it and it comes, they check off yes, this is gonna go to the state, correct? And then the state will approve or deny it at that time?
Maybe someone can run across the street right now and get it checked.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easy enough just to have them fill in the application and then approve it.
Say that again?
Can you just have them come back and make a correction to the application and then approve it?
Well, one of them's due, maybe they all are, I think May 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
that-
is May 1st.
So I would just assume, approve it with the contingency that they check off any missing questions. That would be my recommendation. Bill?
I could be comfortable with that because it's not up to us as a select board to analyze someone's criminal record or non-criminal record. It's really a state agency. So.
Okay, so I need 3 motions, I think, or we can just,
So that would do it, I would do each one individually, so I would approve BG's liquor license license. And then you're gonna go, because you've got a couple for the Skunk Hollow Tavern, you know, you're gonna wanna kind of make a motion to approve Skunk Hollow liquor license, outside consumption. So there's 3 for Skunk, and then there's 1 for Mike, so I would do each one kind of individually.
Okay. So, do I hear a motion to approve the liquor license for BG's Market?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the liquor license for BG's Market on the condition that they fill in, they answer the question that has not been answered.
I'll second it.
Okay, any?
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded. Any questions or additional comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. I keep looking at you, waiting for your eye. All right, so the motion passed, and I'd like to entertain a motion to renew the liquor license for Mike's Store.
I'll make a motion to entertain, or to approve, to approve the liquor license for Mike's Store.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments? Questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Bill, aye.
Thank you. Motion passed, and now we're on to Skunk Hollow Tavern, which is up for 3 renewals of liquor licenses. And let's see if we can differentiate this. BG's.
So there's, for Skunk Hollow Tavern, there's the liquor license for the outside consumption. And there's a first class restaurant bar license, and a second class license to sell.
I got third class restaurant. Okay.
Is it third class for on-site consumption?
It says third class restaurant bar license to sell spirituous liquors.
I'm sorry,
That's
what did I
the
say?
hard.
You said second.
What's these 3 are the ones that were?
There's a second and a third.
So I would go, just like you said, I would do a first, do the third class, do the second, I'm sorry. No, there's a first.
I don't see the first, but let's see. So third.
Too many in here.
Third.
Get rid of
And then
the
outside.
sign.
So there's a
First
second,
class.
there's a third, and there's an outside consumption permit.
I've got mine here
Third,
still.
first class, third class, and outside.
So yeah, there
consumption.
is a
First.
first and a third,
And an outside.
and an outside.
I'm not seeing the first.
This one
Mine says
is,
second.
Okay. I
Oh,
can
that's
just,
for Mike's, okay.
I'll just
good.
go through these in order if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
So for the third class restaurant bar license to sell spirituous liquors for Skunk Hollow Tavern, I make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second it.
Any questions, comments? All in favor? Please say aye.
Bill, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor. Thank you.
And then for the outside consumption permit for Skunk Hollow, I make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second that.
Any comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Bill, aye.
Motion passes.
And for the first class restaurant bar license to sell malt and Venus beverages, or Vinny's, not sure, for Skunk Hollow Tavern, I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Any comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Bill, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much, Dave. I'm sorry, I kept reading my.
It's okay, so I am going to give you BG's first, you now need to sign this.
Here's the pen, this is,
This is BG's first, approved, and then total members present. Okay, pen.
There's a pen right there, green folder there.
It's actually for her, if you give her some, it's okay.
Did I take her pen and give her this one?
Oh, did you give it back?
Yes. Oh, thanks.
Sorry, I thought, bless him. I had you, that's that pen is key. The weight, the whole thing.
Yeah,
is
I
all
know, I
there.
felt it immediately.
It's all there.
Yeah.
The ink, the way it like,
Yeah. All right,
So, we're not done. Here's Mike's.
Every paper has to be.
I'm really gonna need hand surgery after this.
I know.
Here's your warrants.
There's a Skunk Hall Tavern, third class. To start going in order.
Can you hand me that card? And I'll just use that and then I won't have to keep plugging in.
Outside.
You go outside and repent your sins while looking at the chair.
First class.
Somebody gives Bill a call in the morning, they'll probably pop right over there.
Yeah.
This, he makes money off boats.
All right.
I know, I see that sticky.
Western office, I'm the secretary. So I know all the minutes for a while. We have to do an organizational meeting.
Yeah.
So we do minutes for everything. It depends, because they're each their own section, like we have to do a description of the property and everything, so it can be long, but depending on our grievances last year, I think it wasn't a couple of pages. All. Oh, yeah.
Is that it? Okay, all right, good, thank you. And now we are on to the third item of new business, activity center flooring. We have two sales quotes and Dave is now going to explain them to us in unending detail.
Thank you, Mary. Unending detail, but I'll go as far as I can with vinyl flooring. So you have two quotes in front of you. We had reached out for a third. We didn't hear back from them. So I think we reached out to three. We got two. These are actually pretty darn close to each other. So if you look at the difference between LL flooring and Valley Floors, Valley Floors, there wasn't an actual type of flooring selected. So they kind of went with, kind of a ballpark figure of $350 per square foot on that. So that is a little bit higher than LL flooring, in which case there was a flooring specified, and it was kind of the color anyways was kind of specified by Val Rainey over at the activity center. But the type was, and I have been to LL Flooring a couple times now, recommended by LL Flooring. That's a $259 price range. So if you brought the $350 on Valley Floors down to $259 or even $270, it would be, they're very, very similar priced quotes. Just in this case, Valley Floors is a little bit different. Actually, if you were to raise the $259 for LL Flooring up to $350 to go the other way, it would be like a $19,000 price estimate by LL Flooring. The difference is LL Flooring did quote a couple extra things, kind of like a baseboard to go along with it. And so it's not quite apples to apples. At the end of the day, I'm leaning towards LL Flooring as far as where to go with this. However, and I do need to move forward with this. Time is kind of the essence. Both of these guys are getting booked out, and I would like to try and do this before June 30th, so before this fiscal year. So I kind of need to act on this. So at the moment, I'm just kind of hemming and hawing over, kind of the two products between Valley Floors and LL Flooring, just so that I feel somewhat comfortable with that. So I think what I'm looking for from the board at this point is simply to go forward with, a cost range in flooring between,
So two quick questions, Dave.
yeah, between the 17,700 and 21,500. We had budgeted 20,000 for this. I don't expect to go over 20,000, but there's some higher quality vinyl flooring out there that potentially could go up to $5, but I don't see it. On this, I feel somewhat comfortable with LL Flooring. I just want to kind of dot the i's and cross the t's, but I want to move forward on this before the 18th of April, I guess is what I'm saying. So I did stop in yet another place, actually today, Carpet Connection. They actually carry a lot of the same products as Valley Floors as far as the vinyl products. So I'm not sure I'm going to see a tremendous difference in pricing between them and Valley Floors. Feel fairly comfortable with what we see for a price range. So again, at the moment, I'm looking to move forward with a price range, really not to exceed 21,500. I think it will be about 18,000. What we see with the LL Flooring, I just want to check a couple more things on that.
Can you just remind me, what was your budget number? Is it
20,000.
20,000?
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I noticed is on the LL Flooring, it says lifetime warranty. Is that true for a commercial building?
For a commercial building,
Yeah.
correct. So the flooring itself has a lifetime warranty. A little bit deceiving because I think the installation of it, so that's the product.
Yeah.
So they can screw up the installation
If the
and
glue
that's
fails, it's
warranted
not the
for,
product.
what's that?
So if the glue fails, the floor is still good.
Correct, but if for some reason LL Flooring screws up, the installation is good for a year.
Yeah.
But the flooring is good for, essentially lifetime. They say it should go 30 to 50 years for commercial setting. They seem to think that that'll be, it's a decent product for what we see. I get that answer from both of them, truthfully, as far as the wear and tear on this. They both say it's waterproof, unless the water gets underneath the product, You know, if it gets underneath the product, of course, we're putting it over cement. If it was wood, it could potentially rot the wood. The water could potentially weaken the glue. LL Flooring seemed to think that it'll stand up. Valley Floors was like, no, it'll kind of weaken the, you know, the floor. You know, you could have problems. We have had water issues over at the activity center before. We have put up gutters there. We haven't had the issue since we put up gutters. We used to have to go over there with a shop vac and.
Oh, because this is going in the basement.
What's that? It's in the basement.
So, no, I mean, I'm ready to make a motion, but the only thing else I'd say is, can they seal the concrete before they put the floor down? So you're not getting moisture from underneath.
Okay. You want to answer that, Phil? And Phil's got a question or comment.
Thank you, Mary. I just wanted to insert that for a number of years, I worked with the general contractor as a project manager, and we used Upper Valley Flooring very successfully for both installs as well as supplying product. So I have no experience, and I can't compare them to the second one. And Dave, I hear you for good reasons leaning toward LL, but I just wanted to insert that Upper Valley has been a long-standing company in the Upper Valley and has both good products and good installers.
Yeah, this one for 18.
Valley Flooring, not Upper Valley Flooring.
I think it's one of the same.
Oh.
I believe.
Where are they located, Phil?
Route 5 and Route 25 in Bradford.
Oh, okay, so it's the same.
But the only stoplight in Orange County is.
Yes. Jim, to come back to you, the water issues over in the activity center don't seem to come from below.
Yeah.
They seem to come from either the window or there's a couple cracks on the side and a little bit of the landscaping there. So I haven't talked to them about sealing, but we did talk about where the water is coming from. I think the ceiling would be beneficial if it was coming from above and we haven't, or below, and that hasn't historically been an issue over there. Again, one of the small differences between the two Valley Floors, you know, in both instances, the product is going to be glued down. You know, they do the floating floors now a lot. This is going to be glued down. Both of them estimated it to be glued. And this is just one of the things I kind of need to, you know, feel good about is the LL flooring is actually a click flooring. It's going to kind of click together, you know, much like the floating does, but it's going to be glued down. That's got its positives, and if there's water damage, it's got maybe some negatives. The Valley Floors is just butts up against each other and is glued that way. You still get the 30 to 50 years of, you know, tomato type thing, but there is a difference, you know, as to which one may be, but you know, that's just a minor thing that I'd like to look into between the two.
Sure. And Dave, did you mention that and I'm sorry, I did look at the estimates, but that you said LL has a kickboard included of some sort, like a trim kickboard?
It does, yes.
Okay, that could be very useful, especially in a daycare environment.
It's a vinyl baseboard, but it's, you know, it's concrete also would be tough, you know, you'd have to somehow glue a wooden one, but it is there, and again, that's just another detail of LL floorings that Valley Floors did not have.
Well, and Valley Floors estimate for only 4 months old.
It is. I did stop in on Friday, actually. They're somewhat comfortable with the pricing that they quoted. But, yeah.
And then I like the detail on LL Floors All right, so Jim, did you say you wanted to make a motion?
What was your number again? 21.5?
Between 17.5 and 21.5. You know, no greater than 21.5, but I don't,
Okay, so.
that would be only if I order the high-end stuff.
All right, so I'll make a motion to charge the town manager with moving forward with a flooring project for the activity center with a budget limit of $21,500.
Anybody in a second? Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. Questions, comments? No? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Uh,
Thank you, Phil. Motion passed, and we are on to number 5, ARPA funding, so the American Rescue Plan Funding Act funding.
So this is, in my mind anyways, kind of a no-brainer. I gave us kind of a small detail in your town manager update, and then again, kind of in your packet on kind of at the top it says final rule changes. This is something that came down at the very end of the rulemaking for the ARPA funds. We weren't aware of this language until January. In which they came out and basically said, you can choose to utilize essentially a category of lost income or lost revenue. Prior to January, you had to follow a formula to show that you lost, you know, so if you were gonna say, we lost $500,000 of revenue between 2020 and 2022, or 2021, I think is the date, 2022. You kind of needed to show that. And then you could utilize $500,000 of your ARPA funding as lost revenue. What was so neat about that is if you could use it as lost revenue, it could be basically utilized as, you know, any governmental, I'll call it operational expense that you might have had, or you might have, which is kind of the freest, no strings attached spending that we could have. And you know, so everybody was thinking about lost revenue. Well, prior to this rule coming out, we did the formula. We didn't have lost revenue, so we had to look at the other categories. In January, when they came out with this, it basically allows us to declare our entire amount that we're going to get, which is $1,043,000, as lost revenue. So we can essentially utilize it for, you know, general governmental expenses. So you can still use it for, you know, things that were outlined as far as the 4 or 5 categories for ARPA spending. But now they've freed it up to, you can use it for paving, for, you know, building, repairs, and other things that we would generally incur. And it was not quite as clear up until January that that's something that you could do. The only thing that they're asking is that you make the one-time election of what's called the standard allowance. In order to utilize that as lost revenue and, you know, kind of free up that spending. So what I am asking the board to do is basically make a motion, you know, stating that. I do need to make a report by April 30th. It will be the first report that the town makes. We're kind of purposely haven't expended anything up until this point to kind of simplify the reporting, but also under this standard allowance, the reporting is simplified. I can't tell you how miraculously simplistic it's going to be, because the reporting form just came out like on Friday. Just came down the pike, so I haven't looked at it yet. But This is basically supposed to kind of open it up and make it kind of strings, you know, kind of no strings attached type of thing.
Just a side note, there's a session on ARPA tomorrow at 12:30 that VLCT is putting on that covers this whole thing. It's like an hour and a half.
So, the motion should be that whoever makes the motion elects to take a standard allowance of up to, should it be $1,043, or should it be more than that?
No, if that's the cap.
Huh?
Our revenue,
Is
our allotment is the cap.
43, but I don't know.
I'd have to check the exact number, but it's basically 1,043,000.
And does that number have to be accurate in there, or can it be to take a standard allowance of the
I think you just
ARPA
take this,
funding?
you elect to take the standard allowance. You're good.
So in the actual recommended motion, VLCT recommends you put the amount in.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't have the exact per dollar, I've got kind of what kind of Jim said is just kind of that you're electing to make the one-time election. I've got kind of a motion. I have a motion here.
Okay.
If you choose to put it in $1,043,000, yeah, that's pretty darn close. But I would just, I recommend that you just don't put it in there, you just put in that you're gonna take the standard allowance.
So I could take a crack at this.
Go, Jim.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to elect the standard allowance of up to $10 million for our ARPA funds.
The 10 million is a little.
Well, that's their number. That's the treasury number, is you can do up to
I
10.
see that, it's just, if you
All right,
read it.
I'll restate the motion.
If somebody else reads that, they
Think what I
could infer that we're getting 10 million.
I'll restate the motion. I'd like to I make a motion to authorize the town manager to elect our standard ARPA allowance up to our total ARPA funds.
Received. I get what he's saying, because the way the final rule reads is that anybody receiving $10 million or less can take the standard allowance.
Right. I'm looking at it.
What he's saying isn't completely incorrect, but.
No, I'm not saying it is incorrect, but I'm saying just for clarity, for people who aren't here and reading this.
So I would go with.
Historical record.
So Plan B sounded just fine.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay. Would anyone like to second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Phil. Any comments, questions? All right.
Yes, Mary, I have comments and questions.
Yes.
First off, I just attended Two Rivers Regional Forum that our dear Sarah Wright sort of projected, and she talked about this, and Dave highlighted all the important things. I would just add, because it does sound like a little bit of black magic, that one of the reasons why, even though Treasury put this out in the final rule in January, that it took the Vermont League of Cities and Towns some time to test the viability and make sure that it was actually a legal approach that could be used and would stand up to the ARPA funding requirements. So that's good news, and I think it would be good. Second is, there's a lot of detail here that since we can't use it for contracts, we have to use it for operating expenses. So we have to be clear that our operating expenses, that fits this, will actually fit the time frame of that we have to use the money. So I assume it's going to be over multiple fiscal years. I'm not sure about that. Then final comment is we have an advisory committee working on trying to allocate, prioritize the 56 something items that the town had identified, so that we still have work ahead of us to say, okay, if we get this amount of the 143 or whatever the exact number is, we still have the task of the committee making recommendations and then the select board sort of allocating how the funds will be. And as far as I know, the of the diversity in those 56 items, I'm guessing the town could choose any of those besides roads and buildings to sort of to go forward. So again, we have a lot of work to do there. And the one caution I do want to make sure is that we can meet that 143 from the type of expenses that this allowance allows us to sort of claim.
Okay, thanks, Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. And now we are on to number 6, manager's update.
So right off the bat, I want to just say that this is how things have gone, and I expect it to kind of be a roller coaster ride, but Windsor County actually now is in a low category.
Oh, what? Really?
It is now, yes.
Oh.
So just like that, it went from
Wow.
high to low. But I do believe this is the first time we've been in the low category since the CDC came out with its guidance. But, you know, so that is good news. We're kind of moving forward here, particularly going into the warmer weather. I like to see that. We just kind of tackled the ARPA money. I'll kind of come back to this towards the end of the town manager update. Three Corners intersection, I've got a fair amount to talk about here. So the project is officially out to bid. Expect the bids to be come back by April 15th. So we will see where those bids come and whether we're on target or whether they come in over budget. Again, that's moving forward. GPI, so I think that this is an important component to this that I just want to make sure everyone is clear about. So GPI, which is the inspection services, the inspection engineering, they work for us or on our behalf to kind of make sure that the contractors follow the design and design specs and kind of carry out the timeline, and there's kind of an agreed upon way that this project is going to be done. The state of Vermont has kind of a nifty program specifically for what we're in, which is kind of the state bike ped program. State funding, which takes care of the sidewalks on this project. That money actually comes from the Federal Highway Administration, so it's actually federal money. So that in and of itself adds some complexity to this project, and it's a fairly complex project to begin with. So what the state of Vermont has done is they put together pre-qualified inspection engineers. There's a pool of them, there's about 5 of these, of which GPI was selected out of this 5. We had to dismiss 2 of them. One, because one was VHB who did the design work, and there's another one doing work for Norwich and a couple other projects that Two Rivers is involved in. Because Rita Cito is the project manager on this through Two Rivers, we decided to discount them as well. So we had 3 of these pre-qualified inspection engineering firms that we went through and kind of read what these firms are about, their pros and cons. And what we do is we ask one to submit a more formal detailed proposal, which in that time, we determined that GPI was best fit for this particular project. As I put in one year prior town manager update, things might have predated Clyde and Mandy, but They also did the work, inspection services over in Hartford on the Sykes Avenue project, kind of a high volume project over there that appealed to us, and GPI was selected. They submitted a proposal which myself, Rita, Derek Kennison, who works on behalf of the state of Vermont, reviewed and agreed that lives up to what we're looking for. And they came in with a price of $164,353. We had estimated $178,985 for this project. So part of my question is, looking at these pre-qualified bidders, how do you determine, pricing on this? State of Vermont has kind of a good idea of what the estimated prices are going for. And they do take a hard look at kind of that 15% of project cost as another, kind of an underlying baseline for what it should cost. It came underneath that, so we were pretty satisfied with that. So we're set to go with GPI going forward. We have extended a contract to GPI. I've got a copy on my desk. What we're simply doing is holding out and waiting until those bids come in and look at, what the contract pricing comes in at. Just so that
the bids from the other two.
Exactly. So
No, not from the other two.
not from the other two. The bids from. So we've selected GPI. That's who we're going to go forward with.
Yeah.
We've given them the contract to look at. I've got one to look at. We will finalize that, but after the April 15th timeline, when the contracts from, right now we've got 6 contractors that haven't submitted anything yet, but have asked for information to submit a proposal. That ultimately will come to the select board to, finalize the decision on that. We will make a recommendation and say, look, we're gonna, these are the people that we're most happy with. This is who we recommend. But we are essentially ready to move forward with GPI. Contract is ready. We're just waiting for that process to take place.
Okay.
To go back to John Bruno's question, there is a plan A in place if we go over budget. If, it's a $1.5 million project at the end of the day, 25% over that is, close to 400 grand, which is we have in the reserve account. So if it's an amount that is, more than anticipated, just due to all the varying economic things that are going on right now, I do think that we would need to look at the Arpa funding. Arpa funding would be difficult to apply directly to the project itself, but what you can do, and this is just weird, but I think this has been run through the ringer quite a few times, you could apply $400,000 to our present highway budget to offset payroll and paving that we have to do coming up, which would leave even more of a surplus, and we can use the surplus towards this project. So there is a roundabout way to use ARPA funds, but I think that, I hope not to have to go there. But I think that at some point, again, if this comes in at a reasonable amount, we just move forward and life is good. Otherwise, I think that you need to look at a plan.
But what's the process? So our amount is somewhere shy of $1.5 million for the project, right?
Yep.
So if we're close, we really don't have much to talk about. If we're significantly over, is there a discussion then that we have?
If there's like a $2 million project, ultimately I think the discussion has to be, you know, look, this is $500,000, we've got $400,000 in reserves, you know, I think you need to look at, you know, utilizing $400,000 of ARPA money, in order to make this happen. Nobody wants to hear this, I can kind of read your face a little bit, I don't know if this is the way you're thinking or not, but there really is not a whole lot of a reverse here at this point, with this project. We got the money sitting in our account, we're actually gonna start making payments on that. We have $400,000 in interest on that just sitting in our account. We've got grant money tied up into this, 2 different grants. We've gotten to voter approval twice, 2/3 of the population's told us that they want this. You know, just so happens that after 40 some odd years, we go to project on this, and we go to, you know, the year that we go to do this, you know, there's a war in Ukraine that is, you know, knocking out fuel supplies left and right. You know, it's not like we can, you know, put it off. You know, a grant or 2 may disappear before next year, and, you know, this, you know, project has only increased in cost over the last year and a half since the last bond vote. So there's really not a whole lot of wiggle room here. You know, in order to get to the point that we're talking about, Jim, it would have to be like a 35% overage in, you know, project costs. We haven't seen that. But, you know.
Well, what I felt that John, Bruno, and Jim are both interested in is, will we be kept up to date about these costs? And I'm assuming that you'll be in your manager's notes that, yes, there's been some unexpected expenses and...
I think I tell you this every meeting.
Yes.
I don't know how many times, you know, Clyde, you were involved in that vote. You know, it went to Australian ballot. We had, I don't know how many public hearings on this darn thing. On, you know, you've got something in your packet on a question. You know, the darn thing was in the article that we voted on. You know, none of this has been swept under the rug. This is all out there and is open.
And it will continue to be, as we go forward, you're gonna be talking about...
I just spent 20 minutes of your time at the end of a meeting, going through this kind of piece by piece, making sure you understand the inspection service is part of this. And that's basically moving forward. You know, what I did want to wait on was just in case we had to have a discussion on Plan B and C, that, you know, we have that conversation.
We need to see the bids. I mean, we don't even know where we're at.
I agree, but, you know, this is, you know, what we talked about internally, and this is what I'm sharing with you. A member of 2 of the public has expressed concern, so, but this is where we're at. Unfortunately, it's taken us to this point to get here, and again, it's just, you know, I think there's pieces in place that very much can make this project move forward and allow us to do what we need to do.
That's fine. I mean, you know, I just hope that we can keep the lines of communication open and keep the town up to date so that there's, you know, we can smooth out any wrinkles.
So it brings up another piece, and because we dropped agenda number 4, I kind of made sure that this was kind of part of my town manager update. So as a part of that discussion on the inspection services, a big part of their responsibility is they will provide us with weekly updates on what is coming down the pike on the project. So those weekly updates will go to the listserv, they will go to our website, they will go to District 4, Agency of Transportation, you know, John Sanders, whoever else it needs to go to. There will also be, and this is a little bit of the complexity to it, there will be a pre-construction meeting. The first pre-construction meeting will be with the inspection engineer and the contractor. And there's a lot for them to, because how this project is actually done. Contractor has a fair amount of leeway as to how they choose to do it. So, you know, there needs to be, you know, an understanding between the inspection engineer and the contractor as to how that is going to be, you know, how they see that playing out best. After that, we'll most likely sit down with the 7 to 8 property owners that are in the immediate vicinity of this project, including, and those both include BG's and Mike's and the diner. And they will get in ideas to how this is gonna go and how that might affect their business. And then a greater message will be put out to the town. Because we're so, and I've alluded to this in past meetings, because this has been somewhat late in the season to go out to bid, the timeline between the inspection engineer and the contractor sitting down and having that discussion, you know, we're looking at the end of, probably after Memorial Day into the 1st of June, laying out how this is gonna happen with a project that could start 4 weeks later, and, you know, we gotta turn around and get that message out. So, you know, it's a balance here of, you know, how much we actually know, and then actually putting it out and letting them know it. Last component of this, we needed to obtain a permit to work within the right-of-way. It's a state right-of-way, Route 5 and Route 12. It's called an 1111 permit. Part of that permit is that we also communicate with V-Trans, kind of what I'm talking about here. I had mentioned this to boards previous, Mandy and Clyde, and even Jim. That greenway that will be created due to the project, so this is now going to come in as a 4-way over by the wall, over in this area. It's going to be kind of a triangular greenway with grass and trees. We were told what trees to put on there. We had a little choice. Those are to, even though we were told which trees and that it's state right away, we maintain it. So we will need to mow it. We will need to, tree limb falls on the road, we need to pick it up, whereas other trees on Route 5 or Route 12 is state responsibility. We will not need to plow that 4-way, but just wanted to make sure everybody knew that it's actually not our property yet, but you know, we wanted to kind of treat it as our own. We are being forced to treat it as our own, but we didn't get to pick the trees or some other details of that project.
Mary, can I make a comment before Dave goes on?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. I would just remind folks that we're talking about maybe going into a contingency and maybe exceeding the contingency, but before we had the vote for the bond, there was no contingency. So I feel like we are approaching the project as professionally as we can, and fingers crossed that we don't need to start using ARPA funds to sort of do things like that, because I agree, Dave, I'll cringe, and so will others. Second is we all talked about communication, and I sure hope that goes forward. As folks may know, Dave convened a meeting of town businesses to discuss this already, but that was probably 1.5 years ago. So I'm hoping we'll do something similar. And I'm thrilled that we're actually arguing about nuances here of you know, starting by you know, maybe we'll even have a starting date soon. So that's great. So thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Mud season is still here, although we fared, by the sounds of it, better than some of the surrounding towns. always a challenge. It is dried up. If we get a few more days like today, that would be great. However, there are still spots out there, and yes, we are aware of almost all potholes that exist, even though there's quite a few. Just reiterate that the town plan is now in your hands. Public hearing is next meeting. Review of that and any changes, Clyde, including what was inserted or a request from the planning commission to insert the language on the class 4 roads as such, is in your hands. We do have help. Mr. McGranigan behind me will be supporting the select board in this effort. He will communicate with Kevin Geiger over at Two Rivers to make any changes that the select board wants, if any. And then you will need to have that second public hearing to kind of finalize it.
So, Dave, quick question on that. So we've got this extra page on the class 4. Do we need to make a motion to improve it? I'm sorry, include it, or it's just?
Not yet. It was kind of interesting. I think that you can't really make any changes the first 15 days prior to the public hearing anyway. So what I would do is, once you have had your public hearing, hear back whatever comments that the town has, including the planning commission at that point. You discuss the changes that you want to make. I think at that point you make motions and adoptions to whatever parts of the plan you care to do, and then at that point, Sean will put that into text, and we'll kind of put that off to Kevin Geiger. A copy will come back to read just to make sure that it was written the way you guys wanted it to. But I think that would be the best way to handle it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. The only thing I'll point out is the plan, the census data, all the charts are a decade too old.
I know, and I guess I talked to someone who's a planner, and he said that that data just came out from the 2020 census. So, but I would like to see all that updated with 2020 numbers, but I don't know if that's possible.
But Dave, is that something that Two Rivers would do? Would they update those charts?
Sean will need to work with Two Rivers on that, just to obtain, to go through in all the places that's got that, language. I'm not sure how the language affects other text that's written.
It probably doesn't. I mean, it's mostly informational,
Okay.
but if you're going to publish it, you might as well
I agree with you. I
publish
didn't
the
like
current
that.
decade.
Yeah.
So we'll need to deal with it at this level. I would agree with, I think it was Mary, that when the planning commission actually put this to go to a public hearing was back in like December 2nd or December 5th. I don't believe that the census data was even out at that point. I think it came out like a month and a half later, but so we can kind of let them off the hook a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
But it can be put in, and Sean would need to work with. It's readily available online actually, but whatever we need to kind of put in there, we can work with Two Rivers to do that.
Yeah, I'll just make one more quick comment. It'd be interesting to hear Sean's opinion on some of the land use language, to see how that kind of fits in with what you have to do every day in terms of ordinances.
Okay.
So,
I would also recommend that Two Rivers has like 10 or 11 comments that they've kind of haven't made official yet, but have given us kind of wins. Would you say maybe that many, Sean?
Where's that?
10, 11 comments maybe from Two Rivers?
On the new comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On things that they want us to address, so we'll take that as well. I think you may hear that at the public hearing next meeting.
that's why didn't they've been working on this for a year. Why
between us and CATV. I think that there was some impetus to get the planning commission to move along because it had been a year and a half and we wanted, Two Rivers kind of wanted them to get that out. So don't know if that had anything to do with it or whether they reached a point, and I think it had to do with right around back around December 5th or the 15th, where they stopped reviewing it. And they just basically said, we're not gonna put time into reviewing this again until you have basically a completed document. So they've picked this up again and have kind of reviewed it and have come out with their 10 to 12 things. They're not anything earth shattering, they're kind of minor, but
they're gonna cover it at the public hearing.
I think that Kevin will, to some degree.
Mary, may I make a comment that I hope fits now? It's back to ARPA. Another side benefit of the standard allowance is that it gives us a little breathing room. We've all heard that we should look out for federal and state monies that can be used for projects, especially the state, because they've received a windfall of ARPA monies as well. And I would like to bring your attention to H518, which has passed the House and it's in the Senate, and ask you to potentially write a note to our senators. H518 provides monies for energy efficiency and renewable resources for municipal buildings. And we know that on the list of 56, a lot of our town buildings are right there. And these could be monies that could complement some ARPA monies. So again, it's passed the House and it's in the Senate. And if one has a tendency to write a quick note to one of our 3 senators, ask them to please consider passing H518, which could really benefit our town buildings.
Thanks, Bill.
So my last town manager update is kind of on ARPA, kind of dueling, wouldn't say arguments, but so this has been on the bottom of my town manager update now for 3 to 4 months, or at least since January. I'm trying to figure out, that was 4 months, 3.5 months ago, when they came down with the standard allowance and basically said that the spending can be used for a wide range of purposes. I keep putting down here, do not forget that it can be used for ditching, box culvert repair, paving. I keep harping this. Jim, I think it was in jest at the last meeting when we finished up. It was kind of like, we talked about his roads or whatever. I did also want to take a brief few moments to just put it out there that, the reason why we keep coming back to the roads and the structural components of the buildings is basically the deferred maintenance that we've had over the last 25 years and how much that we kind of need to make up. I keep bringing up Clay Hill Road. I'm a little fearful. We're in some talks now with both Twin State and Pike as to what that's going to cost to kind of reclaim that and pave it. My gut feeling is it's going to be upwards of $700,000. That's 3.5 years of paving for us in our present budget, without even getting to the rest of Brownsville Road up towards Brownsville as we head towards West Windsor. Any of the back roads, side roads in North Hartland, again, and it doesn't even scratch the surface on Queechee Road, which kind of needs its own little study, and then it's, that's, I don't know how many miles of road that is, Clyde, 2 miles? 2.5 anyways.
Yeah.
A good distance that's also not included in that. So just without even talking about the box culvert on Jennyville Road, that alone in taxpayer money and years of doing it at this pace is just is somewhat critical. So that's why I keep coming back to this. You know, feel it took you a little bit, it doesn't need to be all, but certainly, this is just stuff that we need to do, and it's gonna, you know, be a very long time to do it at our present pace. If we can accelerate that, then, all the better. That is it.
Okay. So we have, item 7 is correspondence, and I will, mention that we had an email from a resident about, Three Corners intersection. Dave responded. So,
So, you know, I open a can of worms, but just that original email that came in went to listserv, right? Is it worth putting kind of an abridged statement though on a listserv to answer that question? Okay.
that's not our official channel of
All right.
communication, and didn't actually deserve a response, in my opinion, with the attitude that it was written. It was so aggressive and hostile. But Dave responded very thoughtfully. Thank you, Dave. All right, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:29. No one wants to adjourn? Okay, I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. Thank you, CATV. Bye, Phil.
Have a good evening, everyone. I won't tell you where I am.
Good, don't.
Somewhere with an oar over your head.
You look like you're at the canoe club.
Yeah, that's it. That's where I am, just in Hanover at the canoe club. So, okay. See everyone real soon.
Thank you.
Just know that she goes away and comes back and.
You are so cheap, Dave.
I'm
You
not so
are
cheap.
so